Okay, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paul Wilson from APNIC. I'm here in my capacity this year as the chair of the NRO EC to give you an update about what's been going on with the NRO for the last period of time. If you don't know, the purpose of the NRO is here. It's to be the flagship and global leader for that collaborative internet number resource management system that John referred to earlier, which we feel is a central element of an open, stable and secure internet. It does this by coordinating the RAR system and certain RAR joint activities that we want to run in the interest of supporting that resource management system. It's here also to promote the multi-stakeholder model and the bottom-up process of policy development with respect to internet number resources. One of the joint RAR activities that it's involved with also is to fulfill the role of the ICANN ASO, the address supporting organisation inside the ICANN structure. So you can read all about the NRO at nro.net and find out more about that. The NRO MOU was signed back in 2003, 15 years ago, and it doesn't create a formal structure. The NRO is an unincorporated association, but it does have a few committees. So the executive committee is the 5 RAR heads working together. As I mentioned, I'm the chair of the NRO EC this year. Alan Barrett from Afrinic is the vice chair and secretary. Axel Pavlik from NCC, who is here, is the treasurer this year. Oscar Robles, who's also here from LACNIC, he is also on the EC along with John Curran, and those roles rotate every year. So the list will bump up next year with Alan as the chair. Okay, the Secretariat is run by an Executive Secretary, Herman Valdez, who's hosted at APNIC. He's got Susanna Gray working with him these days. There are 3 coordination groups of the NRO in communications, engineering and registration services. So those groups are populated by the responsible staff from each RAR in each of those areas, again working together on joint activities. And there are informal groups looking at public affairs, policy, finances and legal matters that the RARs might have in common. The NRO has a few publications. One of them, you may be seeing this one this week, I think, the Internet Number Status Report. That's a quarterly updated report with all the global stats on IPv4 and IPv6 and AS number distributions. So that's available on the NRO website as well. Another important publication is a comparative policy overview. That's a matrix-style document that gives a comparison across all 5 RARs of different internet number resource policy issues, which may be to do with allocations and assignments and registrations and transfers and so forth. So if you want to understand how the RARs, each of them compare and how each of them deal with different policy questions, then that matrix is for you. And you'll find that on the website. There's actually another comparative policy which is about the governance mechanisms of all the RARs, so you can also find out how we all operate and compare with each other when it comes to our board structures and memberships and fees and elections and so forth. We also publish the ASO website at aso.icann.org. The finances of the NRO, here's a summary of last year. We had general expenses last year of $643,000 US, which included $200,000 for the IGF, but the rest is on secretariat expenses, travel, communications, meetings, etc. We also made a contribution to ICANN additionally of $823,000, which is roughly somewhere $600,000 or so of that goes directly to PTI for its provision of IANA numbering services to us, and the balance goes to ICANN as a voluntary contribution. So that budget in total is divided amongst the RARs according to an apportionment formula, and that formula is a calculation based on the respective registration services income for each RAR and IPv4 address holdings. And that formula gives us this apportionment of responsibility for the NRO expenses. So as you see there, in the last year, Aaron is responsible for 29.34% of the NRO expenses. The other financial matter here is the Stability Fund. So we've all made provisions and pledges to a joint fund which is around $2.1 million, which is said to be earmarked and available for support of any RIR that might need financial or operational support due to whatever circumstances there might be that threaten stability of any one RIR. We feel that we're all responsible to make sure this RIR system works properly around the globe, so that fund is earmarked for exactly that purpose. There are a few changes that came about from the IANA stewardship transition, as they called it, which happened over the last couple of years. You might remember the CRISP team that put together the numbering community's position on the IANA stewardship transition. It designed this thing called the IANA Review Committee. So the Review Committee has started its work now. Its purpose is to support and assist the NROEC in making sure that the IANA services are being provided to us in accordance with their service level commitments and our agreements. And that Review Committee, I think we're going to be hearing from that Review Committee in the course of this meeting, but it's got 15 members, 3 from each region. It meets periodically, timed with the reports that come from the IANA or from PTI about its performance with the IANA numbering services. And its membership, it includes, for the record, this list of people, but in the Arran region it's Louis Lee and Jason Schiller, who both happen to be on the Address Council as well, and Nate Davis from Arran staff. But I think you'll be hearing more about the Review Committee. Another issue that came out of the stewardship transition and the revision to the ICANN bylaws is this thing called the empowered community. The point of the empowered community is to enforce and ensure that the community members of ICANN have got the ability to make forceful interventions in ICANN's governance. So there are procedures for the empowered community to approve and to reject actions of the ICANN board, to remove directors of the ICANN board and other standard practices. And so as members of the empowered community, the ASO has got its procedures for how we deal with our parts of those actions with respect to ICANN. So this all sounds like a complex and bureaucratic thing, but the point of it is to share really a very well-defined power over ICANN across the community of those who are interested in ICANN's activities or dependent on ICANN's activities. Now, the ASO review, something that we'll also be hearing about here later on today. But under the ASO MOU, the NRO is charged with providing a periodic review of the ASO's effectiveness. This is all part of the ICANN framework, again, that ICANN expects and requires reviews of its different components to happen periodically. We had the first review of the ASO in 2011, and the second review happened and was concluded last year. You can see the timeline and the announcements about the latest review there on at that URL. But the final report of the ASO review was published last August. It's also on the website, and we're now in the process across the RIRs and coordinated by the NRO of dealing with the ASO review report. The NROEC, together with the ASO Address Council, issued a joint response to that review report. We accepted the 18 recommendations which were made in that review report, and that response is there on the website. But of those 18, the first 17 recommendations are pretty straightforward recommendations that have got a clear beginning and end and a clear purpose. Not necessarily trivial. Some of the recommendations have got a requirement for review of or change to the ASO MOU or to the ICANN bylaws, which may not be so easy to achieve, but at least the first 17 recommendations are quite clear, and they've got a clear purpose and beginning and end. The 18th recommendation, however, is more open-ended, and it says that the RIR should initiate community-wide consultations about the future structure of the ASO. So that's a set of consultations which now need to go on around the RIRs. The RIRs have agreed through the NRO that as part of that joint response that we'll be conducting these community consultations on the future structure of the ASO. So as I say, that's something that I understand is happening further this afternoon. Just finally then, a few technical projects of the NRO. We made a change to our RPKI framework over the last year with the implementation of a simpler trust anchor system where each RAR is carrying a root trust anchor carrying all of the resources in the internet number resource space. That's something that was announced and is described there on the website. We did some work on IANA/PTI reporting requirements, that is to make sure that the reports that we're receiving and that go to the review committee as well are in the form that we need. We also did some work amongst the Registration Services Coordination Group on something called the ITHI, the Identifier Technology Health Indicators project of ICANN, and that's one where we were interested to ask our communities for their views on what were the appropriate measures and indicators for the health, such as it is, of the internet, of identifier technologies when it comes to internet number resources. And that's a consultation which began and finished last year and has been fed into that process. There was also a revamp of the NRO website. And that's all I have from NRO activities. Happy to answer any questions if there are any. And if there aren't, I'm just as happy. So,
any questions for Paul on the NRO report?
Thank you very much.